Hello, hello. Welcome to Beyond ADHD, a physician's perspective. I am Dr. Deanna Mercado-Marmarosh. I'm a family medicine physician practicing in rural Texas. I used to be hindered by my ADHD, but I now see it as a gift that helps me show up as the person I was always meant to be, both in my work and in my personal life. In the past 2 years, I've come to realize that unlearning some of my beliefs and some of my habits were just as important as learning the new set of skills. Well, hello, hello. I am so excited today. I can't believe it's episode 51. It's crazy how you do things and you forget you're doing things, and all of a sudden you get almost close to like a year of doing things. So, with that in mind, I've had a couple of crazy weeks. Did 3 sessions or workshops in the last 6 weeks, and now I'm super excited to tell you that I have my physician retreat that's going to happen in Costa Rica. Yes, so it's May 1st through the 6th. So I will put all the information later on, but it's going to be a really fun retreat because you get to go have fun and get CME, and it's going to be divine. Half a day workshop at the actual place, and then the rest of the day you get to play. So, and of course, at the end of the day, we have to do the coaching so we can reflect, so we can implement everything that we're learning. So today I have an amazing treat for you. It's one of my good friends, and Abbie Schiller, and I might mess that up. And so she's going to introduce herself and tell us all the wonderful things that she's up to.
Hi. First of all, I want to go on that retreat. I honeymooned in Costa Rica and it's amazing. And then
I did
coaching, give me a
too.
break. Give me a break.
We went for our first year for honeymoon, right? And then we went at 11 years for like to celebrate like in September. I was like, before they tell me that monkeypox is a thing and I can't leave the country, right? So Costa Rica is awesome.
Yes, indeed. Everybody who goes on that retreat is going to have the best time ever.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Abbie Schiller. I am a goal coach. I help women transform their lives from one change to another. I help them reinvent. I help them grow businesses. I help them love parenting more. I'm also the CEO and co-founder of the Mother Company, which it's a media company for young children, and we have the mission of helping parents raise good people. So I've co-authored 12 children's books, and I have a TV series that I created, and just really grown a media company for children.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And tell me, how did you get into that?
I was a mom. So my career actually was in brand strategy and public relations. I had been the head of PR for Kiehl's, which is a skincare company. And after that, I went to become the head of PR for ABC daytime television. So I was the one telling Barbara Walters for The View, like how to manage crises, which is a hilarious chapter in my life, and an honor to work with such a legend. And I kept thinking, so I had a real view of what was happening. And at that time, Baby Einstein had just launched and then sold to Disney for like $180 million. And I was like, these are videos of toys for babies. And I could do this so much better. And there hadn't been any television to really help children with the issues that I needed to help my children with, which were, sharing and communication and expressing your feelings and becoming a good friend. And really the only option at the time, and this really dates me, was Barney. And I hated it. And
Yeah.
I thought, for a generation of women who are reshaping stores like Target so that they're like design first, why can't we have media for children that is, what is the Whole Foods version of media for children? And so we created a series called Ruby's Studio, which still airs on Amazon Prime, and it won an Emmy, and it's just a beautiful series for children to help them learn about feelings and friendship and safety. We have, I think, the best program to help young children understand body safety, not like car safety or bike safety, but like personal safety, without any cringe factor. And then we also have a show on siblings. So we did some beautiful content.
Awesome. And so, we in this podcast, it's my perspective on what I think about ADHD or whatever, right? Is there anything ADHD related with you?
Oh, 100%. I am like poster child. And for me, the H is for hyper focus. So I definitely have kind of the manic moments of unfocus and where did I just like 3 cups of coffee or tea like all over the house that I can't remember where I put, or I'm saying something and then my thoughts drop. I am like the poster child. I'm also dyslexic, so I have a lot of neurodiversity happening, which is for me a superpower because we I grew up in a time like 70s and 80s where they didn't really diagnose us with that. And so I just thought I had a different brain that like got to figure out things differently. And so like, for instance, I was always in the slowest math group because of my dyslexia, but I'm the only person who can do math intuitively because I just feel the numbers because I've had to learn how to do that. So it's been absolute superpower for me to have a neurodiverse brain. And I actually have a little card on my desk that reminds me of that, which says I am immensely capable of achieving great things because my brain works differently. The world needs my solutions.
Yes, that's so good. Um, I'm so glad that you tapped into your brain and you didn't make it mean anything that we needed 3 cups of coffee or we needed to do anything in that sort, or that maybe you were approaching it from a different way that your colleague would have, or your friend would have, or somebody else would have, because I think that's part of the problem that gets us stuck. We just keep comparing ourselves to other people and wonder, like, how come I can't X, Y, and Z? But you embraced it, and that made all the difference.
Yeah, I actually think the opposite, right? Like all the other people are doing X, Y, and Z and it's not working. So what can I bring to the table that they could never think of?
Yeah, so you're able to enhance it and give yourself the permission to think outside the box, because that's what's going to get the job done.
Correct. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. In a way that no one else is capable of. And I have proven that to be true over and over and over. It's so funny because when people get a diagnosis, I think their assumption is, oh God. But I actually was like, hey, that makes a lot of sense. How awesome that there's a name for this.
So how old were you when you were told, hey, this is what's going on?
I, literally like last year. I got tested last year. I'm 50. And I
And
just kept thinking, this is not normal. Like my husband is like, what's up with the non sequiturs? And, finish the sentence. And what, you started to do this task and then you did 3 other tasks. Like, okay, let's figure out why, which was
yeah.
really helpful. And also the other thing that's really helpful for me is to recognize how I'm constantly low in dopamine.
Ha.
And so I'm always trying to like get a dopamine fix. And
So
so if I just,
awareness.
yes, awareness has been so great because I'm like, I don't need to snack. I just need like dopamine and I can do that other ways.
Awesome. So let me ask you this. And you don't have to answer it because obviously it's your medical information, but you're welcome to or not. Um, are you menopausal in age yet or no?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I love that you're a doctor and so you're like approaching this in like a doctorly way. I will talk about menopause all day long because I think that it is so crazily under talked about and underrepresented. And why don't we know like 51% of the population is going through this or will go through this? It makes no sense that we are so in the dark about this. I am what's called premenopausal. So I am still very regular. I love that I'm talking about this. Still very regular, but with occasional hot flashes or night sweats or heart
The reason I'm
palpitations.
asking you this is because some women like yourself sneak away until you hit premenopause or menopause.
What do you
So
mean
that,
sneak away?
like, you never get caught, you never get given the diagnosis because you keep like creating systems until like you probably were doing something that you were so intrigued and it was in your zone, and that was giving you the dopamine. But then you hit, like, for some people you hit the high school or college, right? For some people, you get to like law school or medical school or something like that. Or some people, you become like the CEO of something and all of this, that. And other people, you get to premenopause or menopause, and that's when the diagnosis happens. Or when your kid gets diagnosed, and you're like, wait a minute, those are mine too. And so I'm pointing that out because, again, like, a lot of us unfortunately are like, oh, you're just menopausal, that's why blah blah blah. But what if they have missed your diagnosis of ADHD all along?
So my kid was diagnosed with ADHD 10 years ago, and I totally brushed it off because I didn't know a lot about it, and I just felt like that's not a diagnosis that's going to help her. She's going to use that as a crutch. So I didn't even tell her. I didn't even tell her. And then the more I learned about it and the more I started seeing the things in myself over those 10 years, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And now I feel like there are flare-ups. I just call them flare-ups of like certain days where like the smallest task is just like lugging boulders behind you.
Yeah. And again, like you just said, being aware that every day might be different and not making it mean anything, and having that awareness of like, where am I low on dopamine? Or am I really supposed to be doing this task like at 9 p.m.? Or should I have done it like at 9 a.m.? Right? Or is this a task I need to do? Or can I delegate this to somebody else? Right?
Love delegation. Love it. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So tell me, what has been one of like your moments where like you couldn't help but laugh, and now looking back you could be like, yeah, that's totally my ADHD, without saying you have ADHD, that at that point maybe you never knew?
I had a video that went viral on Instagram, and just a simple reel where I videotaped my cup of tea sitting cold on the counter. And I said, how do you know you have ADHD without tell me you have ADHD without telling you have ADHD? And tens of thousands of people liked this one video. And I realized this is something I'd done my whole life. Leave it in the microwave, leave it on the counter, stick it in the car, whatever. Just like, that was like the aha for me of like, oh, this is a connecting habit.
Yeah, my husband says that all the time. He's like, were you going to have that? I was like, yeah. They're like, cold? Or I'm like, yeah, cold.
So
Like,
much tea, so much. But it's interesting. I used to think that it was because when I was a new mom, I was like, oh, I'm breastfeeding, so now I'm sitting here and I can't reach it. But no, like most brains don't. I mean, typical brains, I guess, don't work that way. I hate the term typical. Like,
right.
maybe typical versus special. We're
Yeah,
special.
yeah. Radiant.
Yes. Yeah.
Charming. I don't know. Whatever you
Yeah.
would want to call it.
I mean, it really works for us on so many levels, though. I mean, we really are magnets and dynamic. And there's, yes, of course, we can't remember to do a gazillion things or are late to things, but okay, like, because we make up for it.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, well, when I show up, I'm here. What was the problem?
That's right. That's right. It's so interesting because my mom actually was ADHD and I never knew that. And I was always the last kid to be picked up at school because she was always late and she would forget things. Or like whenever we traveled, we'd get to the airport 5 minutes before the plane took off. And like, I just thought that my childhood was chaos. And I never realized until I had a diagnosis. And now I see everything from my child. It makes so much sense. It
Yeah.
makes so much sense. It was like, it brought me so much peace. I literally let go of so much anger that I had towards her of like, why would you pick me up last?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? When you don't know, like, we can interpret things in a different way. And especially if you have ADHD, like, we hold on to some grudges and we think like, oh my God, they're rejecting us. And then when you understand it from a different angle, you're like, oh, okay, like she was trying her best, but that was her best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many fender benders. Just like so distracted all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what my son tells me sometimes. He's like, "Mom," and I'm happy. Like he's only gotten one tardy bell. Like
Yeah.
that's
But
accomplishment.
I will say that I am not that mother, even though I have the same diagnosis. And I think that we can we cannot lean, we don't have to lean on the diagnosis as an excuse. Like, we can do better for ourselves. And that's
Yeah.
partly what I do as a coach. I help women really like live the lives that they want.
Yeah, that's right. Like ADHD can start and end with you if you have the right tools. And in this podcast, I keep telling people that, I'm not going to push one thing or another, that only you know what would be helpful for you. But you need to really be open to trying all the things, because it might be that exercise is all you need, or it might be that a low carb diet is all you need, or it might be that you just need a very passionate job and some boundaries on when to like stop, right? Or it could be that you need the meds and the therapy and the coaching, right? Because with the coaching, again, you start to realize that you're not all those thoughts that your brain has on replay.
Yes, I'm a big believer in love yourself the hardest.
Yeah.
Just love yourself. You know what I love to do? This is a little off topic, but
Nothing's off
brain.
topic on
Follow
here,
my brain.
remember?
I
You're in the
love,
right room, girl.
I really love taking time alone, like just solitude time. So like for my 49th birthday, I rented a little tiny place in Maine on the ocean, and I just spent 4 days there. And it was like heaven to just like listen to my wants all day long and answer them. And it got me out of an environment of like routine, and I just was able to be like, do I want to pull over to that lobster shack right now? Yes, I do. Okay, let's do that. Am I hungry? Yes, I am. Let's do that. Do I want a glass of wine? No, I don't want a glass of wine. Like, all day long, I was just like totally tuning in to my brain's requests and my body's responses. And it was like just an absolute gift to myself for my birthday at that time. And I highly recommend trying this if you can. I mean, it doesn't have to be a cottage in Maine. It could be, a friend's house or whatever. Like, just get out of your environment and listen to your wants all day long. Get away from the kids, get away from the job, whatever, for like 24 hours, and just like respond to yourself.
You brought up such an important topic. Like, I'm part of a physician female group. I mean, I'm in many of those, but I'm in one of them, and somebody posted. At first, it looked like an angry post, but she was more like in like awe, and she was more like, we should have the audacity to do what my nanny is doing. So apparently, her nanny asked for uh a weekend or 2 days, I don't know what it is, like every 2 months, to get like kind of like what you said, to get away and disconnect, so that she can come back and be fully present. And everybody was like, oh my god, da, 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 da. And then they were like, but wait, that means she's taking care of her, and then she's coming back, and she's like, she's an amazing nanny to them. Like, she's always like ready to go and present. And it's like, what an awareness of a 20-year-old to have that insight so young, right? Like, most of us tend to like figure out midlife crisis or something like at 35 or 40 or 50. Like, we start thinking like, oh my god, how did I get here, right? Because we somewhere along the way forgot to love ourselves or ask ourselves, what do I want? And at first, everybody was like, oh my God, she's asking for time off. And then they were like, oh, we should learn from her and ask for time off. Why not? And like you said, like, check in with yourself, not just your brain, whatever your brain is telling you, but like, does it really feel at ease in your body? When did you learn to do that? Like, to tune into your body?
I love that question because I think I'm still learning to do that. I am fully a recovering people pleaser and perfectionist. Hey, shout out to all of you. I feel like this is an ongoing process, but when I think I first learned how to do that was 6 months after the death of my father, right when the administration at the time was separating children from their parents in immigration, and my heart literally cracked. And there was a definitive moment in which it cracked. I was standing at the kitchen counter making dinner, and I literally suddenly had like the most horrifying suicidal ideation, which is so far from how I've ever thought in my life. I just felt absolute despair and loss. And I am an empath. I felt it makes me cry even thinking about it still, the horror of the children being ripped from their parents after this journey. And I just realized I'd hit a bottom point and that I was of no service to my family. I was of no service to myself. And I decided I need to check out. I did what your friend's nanny did. I
Good.
needed to fill my love bank. And I believe that in those moments, the universe responds. And I didn't tell anyone, but I got on the phone with American Airlines and I was like, how many miles do I have and how far away can I go? And I had to just leave the country. And I went, my friend, because again, the universe responds. And I am really big on manifesting. Within 5 days, I had a flight to the south of France and a stopover in Portugal by myself for 10 days at a friend's house that she had Airbnb'd and somebody had canceled. So she needed to fill the room. And then I just used miles and I literally did a 10-day trip to the south of France and Portugal for practically free to fill myself up again and to remove myself from the despair and get some. I journaled and I cared and I listened to myself and I slept and it was like, and after that moment, I came back whole. Like when we jump in the pool with our clients or when people are drowning and we start drowning in an attempt to help them, like we are of no service to ourselves or of them. And so that is what I did. And that is what your friend's nanny is doing. And we have to do that for ourselves. There's just so much going on in the world that if we don't put our oxygen masks on first, then we can't serve anyone else.
Yeah, it seems like the big shifts that have happened for you and have happened for me have come from that moment of remembering that we mattered, remembering that we matter first, like not in a selfish way, but like you said, put your oxygen first. And so for me, it was that moment in time when I realized I was the most important patient in the room, that if I wasn't okay, like it didn't matter how much wanted to fake it or to pretend to be professional or whatever they had told me, because I was like not well, because I had not been refueling my cup and I was just giving away, like you said, people pleasing. And again, and sometimes people pleasing, and we don't realize that it's a mechanism that helps us to survive in what we're doing, because then that means it's smooth trailing, right? But then at some point, you use it one too many times that you mask, and then you don't remember, like you said, to check in with your gut, to check in with your heart, your soul, right?
And the barometer of that is when you start feeling the emotion of resentment. Like for me, resentment is like this, any twinge of resentment is like you're already too thirsty, right? You should have hydrated a long time ago. You should have sorry, full, oh my gosh, you should have filled, that was the word. Isn't that funny? Thanks, brain. You should have filled your love bank long ago. So resentment is like a great aha moment and for me in that kitchen moment, it was despair. I mean, my brain, there are a couple times in my life when my brain has become fully unrecognizable to myself. And I just had to like step back and just say, what's happening? Can I share another one of those?
Of course.
So in 2014, I had a spiral I was running a company. I had 2 little kids. Everything on paper seemed amazing. And then my mother-in-law died and a number of circumstances happened that triggered a number of other circumstances that were financial and mental wellness and a whole bunch of other things in my family that created a life within 6 weeks that I did not recognize. I mean, here I was going along and then boom, a circumstance. And then all of a sudden, what's happening? And it actually was a life-changing moment for me because I realized that I needed to take my life back. And I knew that there was I know people can take their lives back. And so the first step for me was to research that. How do you change your life? I literally Googled that, how to change your life, how to transform, how to goal setting, habit forming, change behavior, human potential, coaching, cognitive behavioral therapy. I studied everything for 3 months. I just literally you know, that like Diane Keaton movie, like where she just like goes into like writing and she just like the thing is flowing out of her. That was me learning, just like sponging it up. And I decided January 1st that I was going to create a program for myself. And I invited a friend to a hotel. I was like, I checked out for 24 hours, separated myself from everything. And we went into a hotel on January 1st, 2015, and we just did these exercises for 24 hours. And we ate and we walked and we brainstormed and we meditated and we did all of these things. And we put a plan in place. So we went from goal to plan. And then after that, I started implementing the steps of the plan. So I call it a GPS, goal plan steps. And I started implementing the steps, and within 3 months, my life had fully transformed. And that's actually what my visioning course is now. It stemmed from that moment of darkness and uncertainty where I needed to turn my life around. And now I have a profession around it, and I turn other women's lives around.
Yeah, it seems like we're on the same journey. You know, what was painful or what was not what we wanted, we used it to now give other people a gift of opportunity to do the same thing for themselves. And not because we're going to tell them how to do it, because everybody's in their own journey, and what might work for me might not work for you, and we don't want you to feel like we're gaslighting you or something, right? But we're providing a community, right, that where they can come and give themselves permission to change the narrative of the story that they are currently in, right? That they can decide that, yeah, all those pages and all those previous chapters, it's okay. Like, we can go forward and create, either end this book or start a new book or decide what you want to do, right?
Yes.
And it's when you are aligned with that, it's like a product or a service of love, right? That because you gave yourself that opportunity, you now want to give everybody else the opportunity, so that you already did the heavy lifting for them, you know, that hyper focusing and trying to figure out the things.
Yes.
And I think that's what makes us so I like time benders, right? Or because people are like, when do you have time for do all that? I'm like, well, when it's driven by passion and purpose, it doesn't feel like work sometimes.
I feel like time is such an interesting concept. I don't know about you, but I struggled for a very long time with time anxiety. And again, my mother was always late. She has literally whatever it's called when you have no sense of time. That is how one of the ways her ADHD. She
Time
has no
blindness.
time. Yes, but there's actually a medical term for it, I believe. Anyway, yes, it's time blindness. And she will literally say, "Remember last year when you think?" And you're like, "Mom, that was 20 years ago." Um, it's like literally a part of her brain is like blocked, I think. But I think, you know, for us, our demand, like the demands that working women and especially working moms have in terms of time is, in my opinion, a systemic problem. There's just no way that the expectations of, you know, getting everything done is possible. And so that really creates kind of a math problem. But in addition, we dump on top of that the mental problem of like the drama around it and the I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so tired, I'm so busy. All of that really adds to the feeling of it. And so with coaching, we can take it apart a little bit and just think, you know, what would it look like if I got this course done with ease? What would it look like if I did it halfway? What's a B level effort here, and is that enough? What if what are they actually paying for? They're paying for results. Does that mean that they need to get 15 modules or 10 modules or no modules and just me showing up, right? So just remembering the perspective of, and I always like to ask my clients, like, what's your goal here? What's the bigger goal here?
Yeah, that's the same thing I ask my clients. Like, I asked them, how would you know that you've been successful in this program? Like, what is your success measure?
Yes,
Because
and
whatever,
defining that end point.
exactly, because whatever I think is success might be different when you think is success. Maybe to you, success means you left your chart closed at work, or maybe for you, success means you showed up at your kid's recital because you finally blocked time off for the things that are really important for you. Or maybe it could mean you got away and did a book or something else, right? Like, and giving yourself the opportunity to ask yourself those hard questions, because in our mind, time is a hard question because we're always going to say there's not enough, right? And it's not just like, oh, let me just think the opposite and magically that's going to be better, because we know that's not the case. But it's in learning how to use planners, or how to do it in a way where it doesn't have to be so hard, like you said, with ease. And when you align it with your values, it becomes a little bit more with ease.
Yes, and I think that ADHD people have a challenge with this, especially because we have trouble deciphering priorities versus what's important versus urgent. I think that we obviously have incredibly distractible brains in an unbelievably distractible world. I think that there's a number of challenges for those of us with neurodiversity in terms of time use. And then I love helping people find the solutions around that, and the tricks and what works. And I mean, there's also really great resources in the world for people with that.
Yeah.
Again, what's the larger purpose? I had a moment a couple summers ago, like in the height of the pandemic, 2020, and I was working all day long. And my little guy, we had bought him like an inflatable pool. I tell this story in my visioning course. We bought him an inflatable pool, and he was just out there splashing in the pool by himself. And he called up to me in my office and he was like, "Mama, come play with me." I was like, "I'm so busy. That pool's freezing. I'm not getting in there with you." And then I had a realization of, no, like, what is important here versus what is urgent. And I did have some urgent deadlines, but 30 minutes, 45 minutes in a pool with my kid would mean the world. And so I got my bathing suit on, I got in that bug-filled little kiddie pool, and we threw a little beach ball for 45 minutes, and he talked to me about Marvel, and we just fully connected. And in those 45 minutes, like, I literally felt my fullness, my heart fill, his heart fill. We related to each other differently after that. Things became easier after that. It was a little investment that I paid in terms of not getting, my work done for those 45 minutes, but it was an absolute privilege to have that connection and make that memory with him. And that's what I mean by just tapping into the priority. Like, what's the priority here? And for me, a goal is to be a present mom. And so that was my filling of that. And we just have to step out sometimes to realize the larger goal.
Yeah. And to realize, again, why are we doing this? Like, why are we working so hard? Like you said, it's probably to spend time with your family. But are you spending time with your family? And are you present with your family? Right. So, like, again, it's creating that awareness. And then, okay, now what are the action steps so that I can create the life that I want on purpose, not by
Yes.
chance.
And I wonder how many people don't know how to be present. I wonder how many people don't know how to meaningfully connect. I mean, we have a loneliness epidemic in this world, even when we live with other people, even though we are surrounded and connected accordingly to our phones more than ever. We are so lonely. And that's because we just are out of our connection muscle has atrophied. And so we have to make conversation. We have to put our phones down. We have to engage with people. We have to learn how to listen. I just see this, parents and kids at the table with their phones, and it just breaks my heart so much, because these are the moments in which we teach our kids how to connect, and they're not getting it.
At the chat conference, they had one workshop that I thought was so interesting. It just blew my mind. So she asked us to get in a circle, and she asked us to then stand up and walk around and meet with somebody, but you couldn't talk to them. You just had to, like, look at them, like, in their eye, like eye to eye or whatever. And if you felt comfortable, you would shake their hand. If you didn't feel comfortable, you just walked away. how crazy was that? Like, it was so uncomfortable because like you're trying to be like polite, and it's, and one person wouldn't want to shake my hand. So I just finally started laughing. They're like, okay, fine. She's a goofball. So they shake my hand, right? But like, it's so like the meaning of like body language and like reading people is like not a skill that we can learn, right? Because like you said, we're so like glued to our phones, right? And then she had us do another thing where then she had us be like person A and person B. And person A could not talk. They just had to listen. And she didn't tell us for how long. It was only 2 minutes, but remember, we don't know. And so it was just like, and she didn't want us to say uh-huh or like you just had to be like a mirror, so to say, like, but not say anything. And so it was so interesting. And then she had that person who hadn't talked reflect back what that person had told them. And so it was such a gift to be heard.
Yeah, totally.
And so it's just mind blowing how, like you said, we don't have awareness of how we're doing things sometimes.
Yeah, completely. I get it. What an incredible exercise. I love those. Have you ever heard of the 36 questions?
No.
So there's something called 36 questions. Two researchers developed it in New York, and the whole goal of it was to have an exchange of these 36 questions that at the end of which would foster intimacy between any two people. So they do it with couples who have been married for a million years, who have lost kind of that connection. They do it with friends. They do it with two strangers. They do it on dating apps. They have proven that the 36 questions will create an intimate connection between two people. And then at the end of it, like what you just said, you have to look into somebody's eyes, and then that's it. Like, then intimacy is created.
Yeah, that's so interesting to know that we eventually, if we talk long enough, we might find some common ground, right? And develop that relationship. Yeah, so it was just interesting to walk around the room with people that I would have never maybe talked to, but all of a sudden you just had to see them for themselves and their humanness. And oh, and then at the end of the workshop, they said, we're gonna frame each other. So what that meant was I had to look at you, and by just looking at you, I have to say she's bold, she's like happy, she's vibrant, like based on how they were presenting themselves. And that was also very cool.
Wow. Did anybody say anything like, she's really insecure, she's really traumatized?
No, they basically said, oh, they're calm, or they're reserved, but they never said anything. It was always pleasant.
That's wild. I have such intuition about people. I would have to be careful in those moments.
So tell me, where can people find you?
You can find me on my website, which is Abbie Schiller, AbbieSchiller.com, or you can find me on Instagram, Abbie Schiller Coaching. And I'm launching a visioning course to help transform people's lives in January. It's going to be a 3-month course with a year of support. I'm so excited about it. We're just a relatively small group of people who do this work in community, and it's gorgeous.
Awesome. So, like, my podcast is geared towards people who have ADHD, and sometimes they don't pay attention. So, if they just started listening right this second, what would you say are the takeaway points that you would want them to listen to?
From the course, from my work?
No, from what we were talking about, like the whole.
Oh, from today?
Yeah.
I wasn't listening, just kidding.
Well, good. Then everybody's on the same page.
If I were to summarize this conversation, I think that I would say, like, fill your love bank. We can't be of service to anyone when we are completely depleted. Manage your time, figure out what's a priority to you and what's important, and try and find the balance between the two. And I always like to just let people know, make sure you're being aware. Be aware of what your thoughts are and what the results are that they're creating.
Well, Abbie, thank you so much for coming. You guys cannot see the ruckus that is happening in the background, but I have my two kiddos jumping around and she has kept herself composed through this whole thing.
But I want to make faces.
Oh my goodness.
Cutest. Cutest. It's just working mamas are amazing, right? We are superheroes. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming.
Thank you for spending your time with me. I really believe that time is your most valuable asset. Please subscribe to the podcast, share with your colleagues, and don't forget to check out my website at adhd-lifecoach.com, where you can find out about my upcoming coaching group classes, as well as free master classes and other exciting events that are happening.